Hello, and welcome to Between the Lessons. I'm Susan.
And I'm Kavan.
Today, we're talking about being a step parent and really being a stepmom. We've talked about parenting before, but today we're focusing on being a step parent, a role that I think does not get a lot of attention. I think a lot of people are step parents, but it just isn't talked about a lot. So today we have our first guest on the show,
Yay.
Lea Williams. So excited. Lea and I worked together at the same school and initially connected over being stepmom. And I thought you would be a great person to have just because you're so open and honest. And I really appreciated that. We've had many conversations about it. So, but I do want to say this is not just a topic about me, about us, right? We have like our partners, we have our stepkids, and also their moms. So it's like we do have to be kind of sensitive and considerate in those ways, since we are talking about these relationships and other people. Well, I want to be careful not to talk about other people's experiences and perspectives. And Kavan, you're going to be here. You're going to kind of guide us through this conversation. And it'll be great to also hear your perspective as a parent and I think more specifically as a father. So Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's do it.
I think we should just talk about start with how we came to be step parents. What was your situation?
Yeah. So I came into my stepdaughter's life really early on. So she was 3, almost 4.
Okay.
And I was also fairly young.
Yeah.
So I remember being really confused and concerned and curious at the same time. All of those things were coming up for me, but my partner at the time was a little bit apprehensive and worried, and so we started dating, but we took a very slow progression into what we are now.
Okay.
And I can talk more about that, but it was really just, I met my partner, I found out a little bit later that he had a child, and we kind of really were intentional about how we move forward from there.
Okay, so you didn't know right away.
I actually didn't know right away.
All right.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like he just sort of like let things happen and then found out. But you didn't run away.
No, I didn't.
Sure.
And I think it was I still remember the day that I found out I had gone on a date with him. And I'd always wondered why he never wanted me to come over. We'd always meet somewhere.
Yeah.
And I remember I was in the back yard and I was like, oh, do you have like a niece or a nephew? I see there's like a play pen and like there's all these, like there's a sandbox. I was like, that's so cool. And he was like, no, it's mine. And I was like, oh, it's yours? You play with the playpen? And then eventually he was like, no, I have a daughter. Wow. And I was like, oh. And I remember eating the pizza. I was like shaking. I was like, that's really nice. Just because I had never, I wasn't going in knowing that.
Right.
But I think now that I look back, I understood that he was just as afraid as I was.
About bringing you into his
about,
world.
Fear of rejection and all of that. So it was definitely a learning curve. And I took a couple of days to think about it. But I was putting him in my head of like, oh man, how would that feel to really like someone and have to drop that news? Yeah. Because, you were afraid to tell them in the first place. Which
absolutely.
I think is totally okay now. So
that's what I appreciate so much about you. You are so empathetic.
Oh, thank you.
I think that is like one of the things, like I remember in our early conversations, I'm just throwing this in there, that you have a lot of empathy. But when you first found out, was it fear?
Yeah, it was fear. Absolutely. Because I was in my early 20s and I was still like, life is a party.
Oh, wow.
Like wasn't really thinking about children at all. Okay. Like I had been a nanny and all of that, and that's great because you leave.
Right.
So I didn't know what it looked like to be a mother.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what the situation was either. So I had to really put on a listening hat, and like he was also trying to craft it to not like scare me, and I could see that. So I really feel like our situation, it had to evolve, and the more I learned to give him time to tell me, the better. If I was prying and asking a ton of questions, it did not go well,
Right, because as you're also like growing this relationship, nurturing this relationship, you guys are learning about each other. Now there's this whole other really big thing, and it's a really big thing. It's not just like a side thing or something that's going to go away. Yeah. I mean, similarly, I met, my stepson, or he was around, I want to say like 4 years old, maybe something like that. It was before kindergarten for sure. And I knew that he had, my husband now had a child. So that was always there for me. And I wasn't in any way daunted by it.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, weirdly, I was not daunted by it at all. I think in part it was because I really didn't, I guess, partly didn't know any better.
Right.
You know, I think it was like such ignorance and such
Naivete.
Naivete. Thank you. I just lost that. So, but it, you know, we were dating for a little while, and then, you know, I ended up meeting Zia. So, but in those early days, I was so wide-eyed and like into it. Like I wasn't even scared about it, which looking back, I'm like, wow. But I think I have a certain disposition of just like, you know, jumping in first and then asking questions afterwards. So, yeah. So,
it's nice to go in knowing, I think, also, and like you kind of prepare yourself a little bit.
yeah.
But also just that probably set a nice foundation for you.
Yeah.
Of like, okay, yeah, let's do this.
Yeah.
Like, I'm willing to take on the challenge.
Yeah.
You know?
Can I ask how each of you may have had the conversations with your partner about entering into their child's life?
Yeah, I think when I said we were really intentional, I really meant that. So when we were dating, when I found out, I actually called my step-grandfather and I told him like, hey, you know, my boyfriend has a child and I just want to like get some advice. And the first thing he said was like, okay. And I think he's a little bit more traditional. He said, if you meet that child, you're in that child's life for the rest of their life. And I was like, whoa, okay. And then what I heard by that was not like, you know, you can't turn back. It's just that like it's going to be very hard for them, and also it's going to be it's going to require a lot. And so you really need to make sure that you're ready.
Yeah.
So I actually didn't meet my daughter for a while, or my stepdaughter, for at least it was like several months. And I would just go on dates with my boyfriend, and then it was Christmas time and I was like, okay, I'm ready. And I remember I ran to the store and I got her all these gifts, and you know, and when I met her, I was just so excited. And to this day, one of those gifts that I bought her, she always says, like, this is the first gift you ever gave me. And I think because of that, we kind of created our own first. Because when you are a bio parent, you have those naturally. So that, like, Christmas being our first was really, it set the stage for us to have certain experiences that were just for us.
Yeah.
And then from then on, you know, like she was always a part of our like dates and things, you know, like she became a natural part until eventually we got married and we moved in together. So, yeah.
So very intentional.
Very, yeah.
I mean, I think I mentioned this when we had that parenting episode. We were not as intentional. We were, again, dive first and just figure it out as we're in the water. I mean, I can't remember how long we were dating until I met Zia. But so we had been dating a little while, and then we met. I mean, I do remember the night that we met, and it was just fun and easy. I mean, Zia is still, all these years later, like an open-hearted person. So he just was like, hi, you know, and we just wanted to play. So he was just so open and trusting and really very loving, which I think made it so much better and easier for me, because I really did not know what I was doing. I didn't know what I was getting into. I just was like getting into a relationship with a man, and then he happened to have a son, and then I was just sort of flowing with all of it. So in part, that's why I wasn't intentional. So it was really a lot of figuring out as you go. Yeah. And I think, you know, I think moms do this. Of course, bio moms do this. Parents do this. That's part of what you do. You just figure it out as you go. Yeah. But, you know, I feel very fortunate that, you know, Zia and I really got along since day one.
I'm sorry, was there any like language to explain what was going on, or was it just
to the kids?
Yeah, it's like, oh, I'm just your dad's friend. I mean, how was that explained? Yeah,
I think, well, both because I guess my partner, we both were in our 20s. And so he was just like, yeah, I remember when he would go on dates, he's like, I'm going with a friend. And then eventually, you know, was like, is this the friend? Is this the person you keep going on bike rides with? Yeah. And I think because my partner had other partners before me, and this wasn't the first time, I think she kind of was like, all right, like, I just want to get to know this person. And I don't know that I ever specifically said, like, hey, I'm dating your dad. Right. Because I think, you know, kids, in my opinion, in my experience, are just always on the vibe. Like, they go off of vibes most of the time. So I think she already picked up on the cues of, like, hey, this is something, without me actually saying it. It wasn't until she was much older that I started you know, being more explicit about what my role was, because those questions came.
Yeah.
But I think for me, I made a specific choice not to move in with them or live with them until we were married. For that reason of like, hey, I know that kids think about that. They're like, okay, I know my friends have parents who are usually married, and that's what that looks like. And that's not because they don't have an ability to look beyond a traditional family, but that's usually how they see it. So I was like, okay, like I do want to give her that normalcy. So when we got married, I also gave vows to her, and I told her like, hey, I'm here for you. And then we moved in together, and it was very clear what everyone's roles were as far as like our family unit. You know, like I am now married to your father, and that makes me a stepmom. But it unraveled and became something as the years progressed. And I think that's what you're saying, Susan, is like you kind of do it as you go.
Yeah.
But I did try to be like, okay, you know, once we were married, this is what my role is.
Yeah.
And Susan, when did you realize, like, this is my life now? Like, you know, Zia is in my life.
I mean, it's been a while now. So, you know, we were just hanging out all the time. And I like the whole, like, how you phrased it, like, kids just pick up on the vibes. Like, I was just around all the time, you know? And so you just get into a routine, a flow with each other, and, you know, and Zia sees me, and I'm there after school, and then maybe one day I pick him up after school, and then one day, like, oh, his dad's out, but I'm there with him, you know, and it just moves, and it just grows, and you just build that relationship. So again, not as intentional, but I think there is like some overlap there, and especially I think when they're young, right? That whole thing of they just sort of go with it as long as they're safe, like it's okay, and they see with their parent, like the parent is, you know, co-signing it, and the parent is like, you know, there, so it's okay for them to feel safe and free, and I can trust this person, and it's happening every day, and you know, they get used to like start you being around. So I think it was more like that. It was very organic, and we were in each other's lives, and it's been like that ever since. So
then both of you basically took on a role of being a step parent, and maybe that was shared with them at some time. What is your definition of being a step parent now versus then?
You know, I think that being a step parent, I think there are different types of step parents. I think there are different types of parents. I think there are step parents who are married to the spouse, living with the spouse, or the child's biological parent, but they might not be there as involved as maybe like I was there raising Zia. You know, I was there, you know, doing bath time, preparing meals, you know, getting his clothes ready for school, like the whole gamut. Had birthday parties at school.
How did you feel about that? Like literally, you just jumped from like not having a child at all, and now you are a full-time mom.
You know, gosh.
That's insane.
I mean, I wasn't in my
incredible.
20s. I think, honestly, I was like ready for it because I had been through my 20s. By the time I got together with my husband, I was so ready and wanting of a relationship. So I'm in my early 30s, you know, I'm working full time. I'm just taking care of me, really. And I think I just was like, I was an adult. I was ready for it. I was ready for whatever responsibility came my way. You know, I was falling deeply in love with, you know, his father. And then Zia was so great. And I think I am a responsible person. I'm a teacher. I'm a caring person. I care about children in my profession. So now I have this like person, you know, like this person that I see every day. So I just, to be quite honest, threw myself into it. I really did. And I never looked back. But I think now, looking back, where there's been, it's a lot too, you know, because you're getting into a relationship, you're, you know, nurturing this relationship, you're learning about this person, all the good and all the bad, they're learning about you. And then now you do have this other role, and there's another person, another adult involved, even though they're not right there in the home. It's not easy. Being a step parent is not. I mean, I don't think it's easy being a parent.
Yeah.
It's so hard. You know, it's like, I love that analogy when I hear, you know, bio parents say a lot, like your heart is literally like outside of your body. but it's not easy for so many reasons. And so I think, like, looking back, it's almost good that you don't know how hard it can be.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, just, doing those day-to-day things, the fact that you go in not having thought, okay, you know what, birthed, or I'm a bio mom, so I have to, it's like you really have to make a choice every single day.
Every single day.
To do these things.
10,000 times a day.
10,000 and like you have to, and you hope that your stepchild is making this like a choice with you as well, right? It's not guaranteed. And I think one thing that I didn't expect, but I experienced was like, oh, what do they call me? Mm-hmm. Because I did raise Elena, and I was there, and it was, we were with her majority of the time. Mm-hmm. So when I heard, she would call her father daddy, and I'm like, oh yeah, she's been doing that forever. And I'm like, okay, does she call me Lea? Does she call me by my first name? Mm-hmm. For some reason, that was like okay in the beginning, right? Mm-hmm. But then as I stepped into that role, and I felt like, okay, I'm a stepmom now, I'm like, I don't know, it feels a little strange to not have that. There's always that like little wall between us. And I understand like it has to evolve. And so I do remember one day specifically being like, maybe we could like try out a different name just for me, because I felt really sensitive because I was very young. I moved all the way from Baltimore here for them. I felt like I was just making these sacrifices, and I wasn't, like Susan, I wasn't really like, oh yeah, I was like, okay, I'll do this, but I'm really worried. I'm really scared. And I did want children of my own. So I remember I asked her, I was like, I have a couple nicknames and I've been called them my whole life. And one of my nicknames was Shorty. My brother called me Shorty, and obviously it's because I'm very short. And so I was like, would you want to call me Shorty? And she's like, yeah, I love that name. And so my name was Shorty. Oh. And I think for some reason that really helped me do those day-to-day things when I heard her call me Shorty, because it felt like mom, without having to say, hey, you need to call me mom now, because that just felt wrong. Yeah. But the name change worked for me to keep me going. And it evolved, and it became Mama Shorty. Oh, and I think that's
so
what,
I love that.
And that's what she calls me to this day.
Wow.
But I felt like that was the one point where I needed to be a little selfish, because it really was painful. Yeah. Because I was constantly thinking in my head, like, how is it that I've stepped up into this role and I still don't feel like I have the validation? And it's not fair to want that from a child. Yeah. But I needed it to keep going.
Affirmation.
I needed that affirmation to say, like, hey, because I was jealous of my husband because he got it, and it was just like automatic. Yeah. And I felt like, okay, I missed 3 years or so, but like I'm here right on. Yeah. I'm taking her to school. I'm doing all the things. I want that. Right. And I think it was my age too. Like now I look back, like I was so young, and I think, had I been a little bit more established, I would have had a little bit more maturity about that. But I don't regret it.
Yeah, no, I think it's great. Like, I think because you are giving so much of yourself. And when you said it was a little bit painful, like that really resonated me. It really brought me back, because you're giving so much, and you're not, and it's not about being selfish, but there's just something there where almost like you're putting yourself second or something. Yeah. I don't know exactly what the articulation is, but it just, it does, it weighs heavy. And so I think it makes so much sense that you're like, I need this one thing, to keep moving forward, to keep like being here in the way that I want to feel good, in the way that you deserve also. So I totally hear that. Yeah.
Well, it sounds like both of you, so going back to the question of being a step parent, both of you were ready to be, sounds like you both were ready to be a parent, and both jumped in to those situations and embraced the situation. Some of our listeners may be in that transition of thinking, are they ready or not? Is there any advice you would give your old self to prepare to move into the parent role?
That one's hard.
Yeah. What advice would I give? I guess I would say that it's going to be really hard. It's going to require you to sacrifice and compromise in a way that's not always going to feel good and fair.
You mean your own identity?
Yourself, something about your being, because I think we're sort of in the world, and I mean, you're a bio mom now, so I think in my own personal experience, like when you show up, you just show up in yourself. But something about being a step parent is like you have to always like not expect to be seen.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's it.
And that's sort of like, it's one thing to be taking care of a child and, knowing, but like that is also is hard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I don't know that that comes naturally,
Yeah. I guess something I think about is like you can't think too far in the future when you're starting out. You really have to take it day by day.
Yeah.
I think as a bio mom, I'm always planning. I'm always like, oh, she's gonna do this one day and that, and it's like I have that freedom because I get to make those choices with her. As a step parent, I know I don't have all of it. It's not all for me to decide.
Yeah.
And I know I have to consider an entirely different family system when I think about my child or my stepdaughter. And I think that it's constant collaboration.
Yeah.
When it's about my bio child, it's just me and my husband. And yes, I take in consideration some of my family's ideas, but I come from them. I know what they're thinking. This is an entirely different family that I have to consider, and I don't know what they're thinking, and I don't know what to expect. So you really have to be mindful of your expectations.
Yeah.
And I think of something that makes me kind of sad, which is one thing I used to think about, and I don't do this to myself anymore. It's because I have 2 daughters. I used to think like, oh, you know what? What's going to happen when my stepdaughter, Elena, gets married? Who is she going to ask for? And that would like just destroy me because I'm like, what if, after all these years, she's like, I'd like my mother and not me. It would shatter me.
Right.
But my husband was like, don't do that to yourself. And I can't do that to myself. So it's like, that's where I stopped doing this whole planning thing.
Yeah.
And I just get to enjoy her. And I know that one thing I've also learned is, kids' hearts are really big and they can take in a lot of love.
Yes.
And, you have to share and you have to be willing to understand like each phase of their life is going to require different people, and it may not always be that it's me,
Yeah.
Whereas I can have that assumption most of the time for my bio daughter that she's gonna come to me. So I think it's very humbling, and I just have to be kind to myself not to think too far, just take it one day at a time.
What, if anything, did you ask your partners for how to support you in this transition?
I used to get so mad at him. Oh my gosh, I used to get so mad. I'm like, you have to understand, when I was in the throes of when Zia was young, I just felt like there was almost nobody I knew who was a step parent. Well, I had one friend who was like in a similar situation. So the kids were with her and her husband 50% of the time, but they were then with their mom 50% of the time. Zia was with us most of the time, except like holidays, and then he was with his mom over the summer. So then I think I met a couple of other stepmoms, but it just didn't seem like they were as involved as I was. And to be honest, we were also in court, so we were dealing with custody. So, I mean, that's a whole other thing. But I used to be like, who do I talk to about this? Like, where do I get support? Because the only frames of reference I had back then was Snow White and the evil stepmother.
Yeah.
I know it's crazy, but that, I swear to you, that was like, that's all there
They're
was.
always bad.
Yes. And the only other one was when Oprah Winfrey had her show. She had on Will Smith and Jada Pinkett Smith. And they were talking, Jada Pinkett was talking about being a stepmom. And she was just like, well, when I met Will, he had a son already, there was a son's mom. And she says, something to the effect of like, I had to just embrace all of it, like I couldn't just the son couldn't just come in, but not the fact that he already had a mother. That was it. That was my only frame of reference. That was my only understanding. Because I would go online and it was almost like keep a huge distance, because you're not the bio mom, so you can't say anything. You really can't do anything. You can't discipline. You can't make any decisions. But I'm here with the kid like all the time, So I just felt really alone in it at times, or just like I needed support. And so I would turn to my husband and be like, you need to support me, you need to understand me, you need to give me everything, you know, which was obviously stressful on him and to some degree unfair. Even like, I don't know what it was like for you before, you know, you had your child, when it was just with your stepchild, but like even Mother's Day, like,
oh yes, Mother's Day.
So I mean, certainly my husband would, but that was it. That was, you're talking about your own family doesn't even say anything to you. Because that's, you know,
Yeah.
like I could even feel like a little bit. So it's not, so in those ways, it's like definitely challenging. And I don't know if that was your question. I sort of went off on a tangent.
No, your follow-up is just like,
Yeah.
what if anything that you, like, I'm wondering of the listeners out there that are beginning this journey, what if conversations they need to have with their partner?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think it really looks different for everyone. I really resonate with the Mother's Day. I remember the first Mother's Day, she wasn't with us. And I remember just sitting there being like, okay,
Something feels off.
this is fine. I understand. You know, I'm second in a way. I had a different experience when I went to my husband because, like I said, we were very young and he was hurting a lot. And I think, you know, going through the court really was something that was very challenging for him. And I didn't appreciate it then when I was like, but I'm doing the hardest thing here. And that wasn't necessarily true, you know, because it's really different experiences. That's the other thing. It's like in one house, you're all having entirely different experiences.
That's so true.
Not one person is experiencing the same thing.
Yeah.
And
it's
so
such three different roles.
Three completely different roles. And to try to ask him to like, or my partner to be like, hey, can you somehow make this easier for me was almost impossible. But I think what ended up making it easier is if we just told each other what we were going through. Like I think on the first Mother's Day, I was just really shut down. And, you know, my parents didn't acknowledge it. No one said anything. And I'm just like, okay. And I remember just crying a lot. But then the next Mother's Day, I was like, okay, you know what? I think I need to say, hey, could we, it doesn't have to be on Mother's Day, but can we do something just to like, you know, celebrate together as a family? Because it is something I've been looking forward to. And it's not because I'm like, give me gifts. It's more so just be like, I want to solidify that I'm here in that. You know, I'm here and I'm showing up for her. And if I don't get anything, it's really hard for me to be my own champion. So ever since that one ask, you know, Mother's Day has been a big thing. And I think he saw it also in how I treated Father's Day, you know, because I'm like, hey, you're showing up. I'm acknowledging you. You're here. I think we both need to take care of each other in order for us to take care of our kids. Like a lot of it starts with being able to ask for what you need from your partner. And I remember I used to ask a lot of questions about the past, and I learned that wasn't healthy. And so now I just ask for like, hey, can we just talk about what our intentions are with our children? Can we just have a family meeting and discuss, you know, what we'd like to do together? I don't actually want to know too much about her bio side. It didn't help me. I think the more I learned, the more I started comparing, or I started feeling less than, or I started feeling any type of way. So I was like, actually, my boundary is you kind of deal with that. I'm not going to be in contact. I'm going to focus on just making this house a safe place. And it's more like parallel parenting at that point. It's not the co-parent. Because when you jump into it, you think, okay, like, I want to know what they're doing over there because I want to do whatever over here. It's like, well, you actually don't need to know. You know, let that be what it is. And, you know, just talk to your partner and make sure you're communicating with them.
I'm actually, the word boundary could segue into a curiosity I have. Like, when you then were more formal in your partner's lives and in the child's life, how did you enter the relationship with the bio parent then? And what if, like you said, boundaries? So it sounds like, you know, what are some boundaries you need to think about, or what are some expectations or guidelines in the way you communicate with the bio parent or have the relationship with the bio parent?
Well, there was a relationship early on, and then there was not, and there hasn't been. And I think that definitely took a toll on Zia, for sure. I think we're still healing from all of it. You know, I think both his father and I made an effort I'm sure she made an effort too. It just didn't work out. And so it's hard. So I think it's sort of like what you said. You just sort of, it's a parallel parenting and parallel households. You do what's best for your household. You try and make it as safe, as routine as possible, and you do the best you can. And then, you know, if things come up, you navigate it as you do everything else. You just try and be present, and you try to just center the child and hear how they're feeling and what they're experiencing, while also creating boundaries. And, you know, it does not mean a child just gets to do whatever they want, even though you know that they're struggling and they're going through a hard time. So, yeah, unfortunately, in my situation, there has not been a relationship for many years, and that's just where we are.
Yeah, I think that was, going back to the earlier questions, that's something I assumed. I was like, oh, when you become a step parent, you're going to have to talk to or get close with the bio parent. That's just what happens, right?
Mm-hmm. Ideally.
Ideally, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was raised in that type of household. So I had, not my parents, my grandparents actually. I was raised by a bio grandparent and a bio step parent. And a step parent. And then eventually they got divorced, and then I had 2 step parents. And I thought, like, oh, and they all just stayed in contact because they'd been married for so many years. And it was like, I was like, oh, okay. So going into this, I was like, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make myself available. I was there. Yeah. You know, I would drop her off right at the bio mom's house. I would drop her. I'd pick her up. I would text with them. And I think, like Susan said, when they're young, it makes sense because mm-hmm. you do need more of a village. Mm-hmm. But I think as they get older, for some reason, it might not be like because of lack of effort. It's mm-hmm. just that you do have to start being more boundary oriented, because that child is going to start making comparisons and trying to like mm-hmm. get away with certain things and test boundaries. Yeah. And so you're like, oh, while it would be great if we stayed in contact, we actually have really big jobs to do. Mm-hmm. And we just kind of drifted away. And then as soon as you enter like any type of court situation, that definitely puts a strain on the relationships. And I recognize what court can do to people. Yeah. And it's not like, you know, I don't think it's all ill intent. It's just you're going through so much trying to get what you think is best. And it really did separate us a bit. Yeah. And I think probably for the better, because now that my daughter is older, I think she appreciates that separation, because then, you know, she gets to kind of appreciate and, I don't know, be around in the type of way that she wants to be in the different houses. Like, she has her own set. Like, when she goes away for the weekend, like, I think she puts on a completely different set of mind. And, like, I think she enjoys it for different reasons. And when she comes to us in the week, she's with us. Like, I don't think she wants to have it blend as much. And I think that's probably a defense mechanism, as well as just like her natural way of like compartmentalizing the situation. So now I have no contact. I don't reach out. I do still drop her off, but she gets out of the car on her own. Mm-hmm. You know, she says her little ritual and hugs and all of that, because I can imagine, and I don't speak for her, but I know she said to me, like, it is hard, like, you know, something as simple as like hugging me goodbye while her other family is watching. Like, I don't know why it feels something for her. Yeah. You know, it's like she doesn't know who to. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, don't even go there. Like, that's totally
you
fine.
Want to, right, exactly. And that's the thing, as the adult, as the step parent, as a parent, you always have to put that child first and what's best for them. And so you don't want them to be in the middle, because they're a child and they want to please everybody. They don't want to feel like they're being disloyal or hurting somebody. Yeah. Like, that's so heavy for a child. Yeah. But that means you have to take it on, which you do. You know, someone does. You know, if it's not totally harmonious, if it's not everyone's not on the same page and everything's cool, then it's just like you got to make those hard choices. So, but court, if you can stay away from court, you want to stay away from court. Yeah. But sometimes you cannot stay away from court, and it does take a toll, and it's not easy to let this system and these other individuals make these really big decisions. But sometimes that's just what happens.
And I'm curious for you, because I kind of stayed out of the court situation. I found it hard trying to be like an unbiased party in that.
Yeah.
So I felt like I actually was just there to support my husband in many roles because things came up that were before me. And I was like, whoa, okay, this is where I really understood where the hardship happens for the bio parent. Is I think it's in court. And I think as the step parent, then you really have to take the shift. And I think I had a better appreciation. I'm like, oh, okay, this is where it's really hard for you. It's hard for me on the day-to-day. But like everything is accumulating to so much right now.
Yeah.
And they're fighting so hard. And it's like, whoa, that's something I really didn't understand until I went through it with him.
Yeah. It's hard for sure.
You mentioned before a little bit about like, trying to maybe having the intention of being on the same page in both households, but then realizing you have certain guidelines in your house and you have to maintain them. What, if any, language have you used, or maybe can you share some language you used for your children to maintain those expectations in your house if a child was pushing back or try to abuse the system?
For me, I just don't play. Like, I think that's just a me thing.
Yeah.
But, I mean, when you're raising a child, you have to, they're going to, like, I ask you to do something, they don't do it. Yeah. So this is what it is.
Absolutely.
This is what it is.
No, it's I think it's the case for any parent, right? This is like a parenting thing. It's like you have to stay consistent because what they have is time. Yeah. They have plenty of time. They will push, but it's like, well, I do too. Yeah. I have time to stay right where I am. Yeah. And I'm not going to push.
Yeah. I think exactly. Consistency for parenting is ideal. I think that is what kids need for structure, for safety, so that they can sort of find their ways to thrive because they know the foundation is set.
A lot of our conversation has been focused on your energy, for the child, for the new family dynamic. I'm curious now, turn inward. How has being a step parent changed you? Or helped form your identity? Or how's your identity evolved of being?
Yeah. That's a great question.
Yeah. I think it's made me a better parent.
I can see that, of course. Yeah.
I really feel like it's made me, and my husband said this the other day, and I was like, no, I'm just great. I work hard. It's not, but I think, it's because of all of that work you're doing. It's extra work. It's like, it's so much harder because there's something on top of the parenting all the time. It's not like with my now 2-year-old, I'm like, wow, I'm so much more relaxed. Like I am not super anxious all the time. And I think I had to set some non-negotiables, right? Like I understand like now when my daughter Elena, my stepdaughter, she comes to me with things, I'm like, is this a safety thing or is this just like you trying to get one on me, And now I know them. And now I'm like, there's no chance for my other daughter. You can't even try me because I've seen it all, because you're constantly like, oh no, like she's having an issue with, I'll give an example, which is that in the other household, screens were a really big part of life. It was like, you go there, you get on a screen. I'm on the philosophy, like no screens during the week. Like that's always been my rule. And she's, wow, this is the worst. But I stayed firm and I was like, the reason why I'm doing this, and this is the language I use with her, was like, I do really understand that you need to cope, but there are other strategies you can use that are not going to be screens in our household. And like, so I very early on was like, okay, we can do puzzles, we can do things like, let's do things together. And like kind of modeling like what you're really searching for, what you're really seeking is for a relationship. Yeah. And I know you can't articulate that. So I'm going to say like, this is what happens when we watch screens, we don't get to relate. So let's relate other ways and build this foundation and make this be like the norm. And so I bet now she's like super thrilled to go over there. Right. Because now she gets to go watch the screens. But I don't mind that tug of war anymore. Yeah. It doesn't bother me. But in the beginning, I was like, oh no, like she's going to hate me. She's going to hate it here. Yeah. She's not going to want to be here because I'm so strict. And I felt myself like wanting to give up and be like, fine, you can watch TV because I want to be the cool house too. Because I stayed firm, now we talk. I have a living room kid. She's in my living room all the time. She's never in her room, right? She wants to be where everybody is. And I'm like, yes, like that is what I was working for. Yeah. And I think as a parent now for my younger daughter, it's going to be much easier for me to stay firm in my boundaries, because I know that like I don't have to, I'm not thinking about what anyone else is thinking about. I'm not trying to be somehow better. I know that what I'm doing is going to make sense in the long run.
Yeah. I think how being a step parent has changed me and impacted me. I mean, I've been saying this to Zia for years. He is my greatest teacher. You know, I'm impatient, I'm controlling, I have a lot of fear, so I'm very reactive in that way. I can be very petty also. I have a lot of traits that I have to work on, a lot of stuff. And I think that when you're a parent, and then also as a step parent, you know, it's just like that mirror that you just don't want to see. It's constantly being held up to you. And then it's, for better or worse, being a step parent, and then there is this other household, and of course they have their mom, and the initial like comparing or all of that. It just, you have to grapple with that. And so, yeah, I've had to learn to be patient. I've had to learn to be a loving person. And I think actually I'm still working on that. You know, we talked in our last episode about just learning how to love and what that means. And children obviously they have, like you said, such big hearts. And I think I have learned to love more deeply. I've learned to sort of feel more, or be vulnerable in loving another person, because that's what Zia asked, that's what he needed, that's what he deserved, that's what he was giving me. And so I think in so many ways he's just taught me to be like a better person, a more loving person, a patient person, a more generous person. And going back to what you were saying before, I think this is what I was thinking about before, is like that consistency, however hard it is and however hard it was back then. And it was, because technology had to be off at a certain point. I had definitely expectations, but also, like I said, it is what it is. But I think he knows me so well. If we're having a disagreement or something, you know, I'll say to him, like, Zia, you know me, like, even if I'm not saying it, you know where I'm coming from, you know, for all the good, for all the bad. And I'm like, and I know you like that also. You know, when you just know somebody.
Yeah.
And I am so grateful. Like, to me, his spirit and his soul is like, it's a blessing for me to have someone like that in my life, and to be close and connected to someone like that. And so, like, I could like cry right now. But yeah, so I just think it has just made me a better person, a deeper person, a more loving person. So it's definitely been for the better, for sure. As much as it's been so hard, all the challenges, all of that stuff, like, it's, to have this relationship is everything.
And the relationships with your partners?
Yeah, I think it gets stronger, because it sounds strange, but like I've fallen more in love with my husband because of my stepdaughter. And also just like, I feel less insecure. I'm like, wow, I'm loving someone who is a combination of two different people, one of whom I already love, but I'm also like, hey, thank you. Thank you, BioMom, for bringing this person into this world. And I'm sure I'm seeing little bits of you that I don't even know.
Yeah.
But now I'm like really like appreciative of that. I'm like, wow, you know, she's really growing up to be someone who would make all of us proud. And when she has those struggles, it's actually much easier for me to relate, actually, because I think, you know, what I find hard about parenting is that it is a mirror and it's you. And you're looking at yourself and you're like, okay, how can I help someone else with something that I'm struggling with? And so my husband's like really grateful, because he's like, oh, you see it. Like when she's struggling with certain things, you can identify it really quickly, because it's not something that you know, we are a little different. There are definitely ways in which she's become very similar to me because I've raised her. And so I'm like, ooh, I made that. So it's kind of fun to be like, that's me. That's not me. That's me. You know? But there's like, for an example, like she's an artist at heart. And I know she didn't get that from me. Like I can't draw a straight line. But she is just such an artist. And I know that that's what her BioMom was. Her BioMom is an artist. She's an incredible artist. So I'm like, oh, you know what? And I think I'm so much more mature now to be like, you know, that must feel really great
Yeah.
that you have something that your mother has.
Yeah.
And to be able to uplift that in my household without being like, oh,
Right.
I feel awkward. And, you know, and my husband, I think, probably feels like he can take a deep breath.
Yeah.
Seeing that
sure.
crossover kind of be
Yes.
like, oh, cool, that's great. You know, it's not something I need to like feel weird about. I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, she gave her this amazing art gene and that's great, you know, and I think you're becoming a really cool kid that, you know, takes parts of me, takes parts of your bio mom, takes parts of your dad.
Yep.
And it's just like, you have to have a huge heart for that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think in our relationship for my husband, I think, and it's just like part of our story. I think we, you know, coming in, being part of raising Zia, you know, for full time for a long time, going through court, and just, it's just part of our story. And I think we both have grown a lot through those years, like in our relationship, because we've had such, you know, these really real experiences that haven't been easy. So I just feel both to Zia and my husband, I think I've just grown up a lot. I think I had a very wide-eyed way of looking at the world, which I think allowed me to get through a lot of it. But I think I just really learned a lot and was able to come through it because they love me so much. I think I was able to come through all those hard times where today I don't feel like so bitter and resentful. Like I can still hold some like softness and some, you know, because they've just loved me so much. And that I think is something actually I really needed. So I feel grateful, and it's just kind of like our story. I think it's very unique. And because it's interesting, like being a step parent, like I think that there's a lot of blended families out there. I think there are a lot of step parents out there. And yet it still is such a, I think, not easy to talk about. And yet I do think it's pretty common too. So anyway, yeah.
I want to thank you both for sharing your stories today. Our listeners and I have truly learned a lot from your experiences. For me, I think I've learned a lot more about what unconditional love really means through your eyes and through your experience and all the aspects of it. The grace, the gratitude, the resilience, and the growth that you've both have gone through, and not only welcoming this person into your life, but having that person help develop who you are to the person you are today. I'm in just absolute awe of both of you. And thank you so much for sharing your vulnerability today.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Lea.
Lea, for our
joining us.
first guest. Thank you.
So awesome.
Thank you. This is one of my favorite topics, but also just like it's so cathartic to be able to say it to someone and hear your story. Like from the moment we met, that was like, oh my gosh, yes, finally I could
totally get it.
say all these truths out loud.
Yeah.
So thank you for having me.
For sure.
For sure.
Yeah. Great.
Well, thanks.
Yeah. See you next time.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.